How are you doing? Thank you for taking the time out to join us today.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to just go ahead and jump right into the questions. So can you tell us what type of feedback are you getting from the community thus far?
You know, we are seeing a massive crisis on the hands of the vast majority of ordinary people. I mean, on the one hand, we're facing the prospect of ill health and loss of life. Already, we have seen the impact of the pandemic. The United States has become an epicenter. You know, it started with Seattle, with loss of life in Seattle. And so we face an urgent crisis to make sure people are safe. And that's why if you're watching this and if you're able to maintain social distancing, you absolutely have to, both for your own health, your family's health, your community's health, and for the health of everyone in the city. And healthcare workers are telling us repeatedly, please stay at home if you can, because if you don't and we spread the infection, it only increases the burden on the healthcare workers and on our already stressed out and stretched hospital system in the absence of public healthcare because of for-profit healthcare. But on the other hand, we're also facing a financial collapse. You know, we've seen from the data that has been just released that nationwide, over 6.6 million people, American workers, have applied for unemployment insurance. And in Washington state, in the last 2 weeks, it's been over 133,000. So this is a massive crisis. People are either being laid off straight up, or they're being asked to stay home, but they don't have any paid leave. So the question of how will you pay your rent, how will you pay a mortgage if you are a middle class homeowner, is a very important question that has emerged. And that is why we are circulating a petition that has already got more than 8,200 signatures demanding that Governor Inslee, Washington Governor Inslee, immediately suspend rent, mortgage, and utility payments without any financial consequences.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. So speaking of the rent moratorium, do you have any updates on rent moratorium and how that's been going, how the organizing for that's been going?
Well, in the initial days of this pandemic, my office had circulated a petition and, built a movement around eviction and eviction and foreclosure moratorium. And at that time, it seemed the absolutely urgent thing to do. But I'll tell you, just 2 weeks from when we did that, now it doesn't seem enough at all. And that's why, as I said, we're now building a movement for a suspension of rent payment, mortgage payment, utility payment in the first place, because people have no money. And we need to be a society that is looking after ordinary people and not putting them in the position where they are paying their rent to their rapacious corporate landlords while not having money for groceries and medication. We don't want people to have to make that false choice. And that's why we absolutely need to make sure that the burden of this crisis does not land on the shoulders of ordinary people, communities of color, already vulnerable people who are under the normal situation of capitalism getting exploited, and now they're going to be even more exploited in this pandemic. We can't have that. And in the meanwhile, big banks, the billionaires, Wall Street, they're getting trillions of dollars of bailouts. What about us? What about the majority of the hundreds of millions of people in the United States? That's whom we are fighting for. And so we're getting tremendous response, positive response to our petition demanding the governor suspend rent and mortgage payments. So if you're watching this and you are a renter and you have lost your income and you don't know how to pay your rent, please contact my office, sign the petition. Hopefully Africa Town Media can share that information with your viewers, because we want people to get involved. Please don't feel alone or isolated or demoralized. You're not alone. Tens of thousands of people in this city are already in major crisis and they want to get organized. And when we're alone, we have no power. But when we can get collectively organized, we can build power. And corporate landlords, remember, corporate landlords, corporate developers, predatory landlords, they have lots of cash reserves. They should be paying for this crisis. So even if you're a small business that is struggling to pay your commercial rent, you should join our movement. Contact my office.
Awesome. And so for folks in the community who are, currently in crisis, what resources are there for them?
Right now, there's very little resource. Unfortunately, the federal government is about to release a one-time check of $1,200. But even there, we are hearing that they're going to put up all kinds of roadblocks to make sure that people don't qualify for it. It's really unconscionable. And we have to fight for as much as possible on the federal level. But but it really comes down to building movements of grassroots people. So even in the days of social distancing, when we're not able to sit physically next to each other, we still have to build a movement. And so part of what we're doing is also, we've launched a fight for a tax on Amazon and other big businesses in our city, so we can raise $200 million immediately as an emergency relief for our households, our lowest income households, our most vulnerable households, including communities of color, immigrant communities, women, single women-led households, which are in crisis, where people have lost their jobs and they have no income starting next month. So we need to be able to raise $200 million this year so we can provide $100,000 households, about $500 a month for 4 months at least, if this bill can pass immediately. And then starting next year, we can raise $500 million to build social housing, which will also be a jobs program in the middle of a recession that is going to take away many of our jobs as we head forward. But I'm telling you, we're not going to win this without building a major movement on the ground. So if you're watching this and you agree that working people need cash assistance and big business should pay, then please join our movement.
Yeah, awesome. And then do you have any other updates about the tax on Amazon?
Yes, as I said, we've just launched this. We just had a press conference 2 days ago. Last night, we had an online town hall from my office, to build the movement for this. And so if you're watching this and if you haven't gotten involved yet, as I said, please contact my office. We will share the petition with you, but that's not going to be enough. We're going to have lots of next steps, including my upcoming town hall on Thursday next week at 6 p.m. So this is going to be a regular thing. Join me in my online town hall every Thursday at 6 p.m. for as long as this pandemic lasts. We need to make sure that the burden of this crisis does not land on the most vulnerable.
Awesome. Any other comments for the community?
Just to say that, I know this is a very, very difficult time. People are facing a huge crisis, as I said, both the economic crisis, and many of you probably have family members who are facing health issues. So I just wanted to say, my office and my organization, Socialist Alternative, stands in solidarity with you, but none of us should be alone. So please contact my office so you can feel empowered as part of a movement rather than being isolated.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Councilmember.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.